Hello and welcome to the MyVA Dayton Podcast, coming to you from Dayton, Ohio. This is the show where we talk with veterans in the Western Ohio region to share their stories and share what's happening at the Dayton VA Medical Center. I'm Scott Lease, your host, with co-host Greg Tucker. We have with us today a U.S. Army veteran from Fairborn, Ohio, Stephen Ratcliffe. Steve is on the board of directors of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Miami Valley Chapter 97. He is also an active member of the regional veteran community, consistently seeking methods of resources to better their lives. While in the Army, he served as an Army aviator door gunner. So welcome to our podcast, Steve.
Thank you.
Before we get to know more about you, we're going to put you to the test.
It's time!
That's right. It's time to play Don't Tell Me I Think I Know the Answer. This is the game where we put our guests to the test of their knowledge of military trivia. It's also a game where our listeners can play along to see if their minds are mired in mounds of military minutia as ours are. Are you ready to take this challenge, Steve?
I am.
Okay. Since you are an Army veteran, we have tailored these questions specifically for you and your career. So your first question is, who was the first military pilot? Would it be A, Joe Namath, B, Frederick E. Humphreys, C, Chuck Yeager, or D, Wilbur Wright?
Frederick E. Humphreys.
That's correct. That's the right answer. On October 26, 1909, the West Point graduate became the first military pilot to fly a plane solo. After receiving only 3 hours of training, Humphreys resigned the following year to take over his family's business, but joined the New York National Guard in 1915. He died in 1941 and is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Now, here is your next question. Who was the military's first female pilot? Would it be Amelia Earhart, B, Martha Stewart, C, Janie Leavitt, D, Carol Littlejohn?
Janie Leavitt.
That is the correct answer. Good job. After entering the branch in 1992, she became the first woman to command a combat fighter wing and has logged more than 3,000 flight hours, including over 300 combat hours. Now, here's your third and final question. In what war did the first purpose-built attack helicopter first appear? Would it be A, Yom Kippur War, B, Second Congo War, C, Korean War, or D, Vietnam War? That is the right answer. And of course, you know that, being a Vietnam veteran. So congratulations. Great job. So Greg, what has Steve won for playing our game today?
And Steve, for playing our game today, you have won 4 industrial strength chip clips made by NASA.
Just what I needed.
Just what you need on your next space journey, here or wherever. All compliments of the Dayton VA.
So guard those with your life and be very careful with them. As we said, they're industrial strength. We don't want you to get harmed, getting your finger stuck in those chip clips. So be careful with those.
I've got a refrigerator full.
All right, terrific. Well, now you got 4 more. Share with your friends and family. Okay. So we'll be right back a little while. We're going to take a quick break here. And then when we come back, we'll hear more from Steve about his work in the community and the Vietnam community organizer and his experience in the Army.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Jerry Reed.
Kate Weber.
These are real veterans facing a real challenge.
I have PTSD.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can happen to anyone.
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
But treatment can turn your life around.
Treatment has really saved my life.
To learn about PTSD and how treatment can help you, call your local VA medical center or visit ptsd.va.gov.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Got a question about your VA benefits, healthcare, or eligibility? Go to va.gov, where you can access a new interactive chatbot to ask questions 24/7.
And we're back with Army veteran Steve Ratcliffe. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us, what are you doing these days, Steve?
Well, I'm retired from the civil service, Wright Pat Air Force Base. basically I'm spending most of my time working with our Vietnam Veteran chapter here in Dayton. Trying to get them meet vets and get them to help come with us and help with the work.
And so what did you do at Wright Pat before retiring?
I worked in civil engineering in the central heating plants.
Okay. And so tell us how that differs from what you're doing today.
It's a lot cleaner. We fired with coal out there most of the plants. And then I also transferred out to the VA hospital where I worked in that heating plant out there also.
Okay.
I worked there for 5 years.
Yeah. And so right now you're working with the veteran community?
That's correct, yeah. Well, picked up most of my time, really. So.
And what are you doing with the veterans today?
Well, let's see. I've been a member of the Vietnam Veterans Organization a long time. I got involved with them back in 1983, about a year after they dedicated the statue or the wall in Washington, D.C. So we got involved. We go out to events, try to recruit members to join, try to help them out, give them the information they need to get the help they need. And I've been doing that most of my time. I've attended about every national convention the Vietnam Veterans Organization has had. Mm-hmm. So I think there's only about 2 or 3 of us left that's attended them all. So that's the governing body of our national organization.
And so what kind of help do you have veterans, or what kind of help do you help veterans find? Well, mainly things that they can file claims with on their illnesses from doing the research or with Agent Orange and PTSD. We try to send them in the right direction. Our national and our state organization has service officers. We have in Ohio, we call the Buckeye State Council. We got about 36 chapters all within the state. And we got a service officer that's up in Cleveland that can be contacted through our organization also. And so do you primarily deal with Vietnam veterans or veterans of all service? Well, we try to help everybody, but our primary focus is the Vietnam vets to make sure they're getting the help they need. Sure. And what kind of specific help do veterans from Vietnam need? Well, basically, we're kind of like a brotherhood, you know. Every time you see another veteran come down, and that's why we wear the garb, so we can help find our brothers and stuff like that, and sisters too. And this camaraderie, Vietnam brothers seem to trust each other a little bit. Sure, absolutely. Than anybody else. And so, and when you're talking to these veterans, tell us some of the specific needs that arise for Vietnam veterans. It's try to bring them all the way home, really, because some of them are still stuck in country in their mind and everything. Help them get psychological counseling and point them in the right direction and give them answers where they can get compensated and get their disabilities maintained and the health care taken care of. Yeah. Do you find that veterans from that era have taken a long time to come to reconcile that? Oh yeah, very so. Well, it's getting better. You know, I didn't mess with it till I came back in 1971. I got out of the service, and the way the attitude was back then, we just didn't talk about it, didn't congregate or anything else like that. I think for myself, when it was after they dedicated the wall in Washington, D.C. with all the dead on it, mm-hmm. I think that's when people started getting involved and felt they've done something. Right. Well, over recent decades, and I know that's, it's been a huge switch from what veterans from Vietnam had experienced coming home, that there was not a welcome homecoming for them. But over the years, that has changed, I believe, a lot. But do you find that veterans still are harboring resentment for that? Some may, and that's why we get them to seek them out. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of them have done stuff they shouldn't have done, and some of them are incarcerated, and they need the help also. One of our mottos for our organization, never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. Mm-hmm. And that's something, we take that motto seriously. And that's one of the things we do as veterans in our chapter. We give out certificates, welcome them home from not only our group, but the younger vets,
the older vets. We got them from World War II.
Sure.
In Afghanistan, Iraq. And I think when they went into Desert Storm, there was people started to protest against it and everything. And we were out there counter-protesting, supporting the troops to support the troops.
Right. Absolutely. So, we find even today, veterans are very self-reliant in many ways and reluctant to come forward asking for help. Do you find that true, especially with Vietnam veterans, that they, like you said earlier, they're reluctant to talk about these things, but is it still because they're too proud sometimes to come forward?
That's a possibility. And one of the things is there's a trust factor in here. You get burnt once, you don't want to get burnt again. And I know back in the early days, the VA has made a big improvement on the way they treat the veterans. I remember a while back when I started working up there, I had to take a day's annual leave just to go out to the VA to get something because it took so long to get to see somebody. So, but now it's continued, and I was one of those that didn't really trust the VA a whole lot. I got my federal health insurance, and it's pretty good, and I tend to do that. I just recently myself got up to priority 1, which is I can get my meds for a lot, so I'm going to start getting all them from the VAs.
Right. So, with Vietnam veterans especially. Tell us what you would tell other veterans, how they can better serve that community of veterans.
Get involved. That's what you need to do. Get involved with a veterans group, a veterans organization you feel comfortable with. As of right now, we have a life membership of $50, and that's all you pay.
Okay, for your particular organization, which is
VVA Chapter 90. Yeah.
Okay,
VVA Chapter 97.
So that's Vietnam Veterans of America that you're talking about.
We're Miami Valley Chapter.
And if somebody wanted to get involved in that way, how would they go about doing that? Who should they contact, or where should they go?
In order to contact our local chapter here, the Miami Valley chapter, you can either mail us at our post office box 2702 in Dayton, or you can, the chapter phone number has a closed caption answering machine, is 937-233-9750. Or for appointment, you can call Dave Fuchs at 937-750-6951. And he can give you information about joining us or attending a meeting. Email vvachapter97@gmail.com.
Tell our listeners, if you could, why they want to do that. Why do they want to join this organization?
Well, I'll tell you what, when veterans get together, the inter-service rivalries that a lot of them have, kidding around, they feel a little home. They trust their brother and sister vets more than they do any other organization that I would think. And we're the one, some of the older veterans organizations have bar operators. We don't have a bar operation. That was put in our Constitution at the first convention because a lot of our guys were having problems with alcohol and other things, so we didn't want to be a part of causing them to have worse problems. So that's why we kind of stayed away from that. And some chapters have events where they do serve it, but it depends on the organization.
Sure, but it's really all about fellowship and being with somebody who you have something in common with.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a brother. You tend to trust them a little more than the average guy on the
Sure,
street, so.
Absolutely, and you can get some help in the process.
That's right, and that's what we try to do, put out the information so we can get it.
All right, well, terrific. We're going to take a quick break here again. When we come back, we'll talk to Steve about his military experience in the Army.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. If you were exposed to toxic substances while serving in the military, a new law called the PACT Act may make you eligible for additional benefits and care. The PACT Act benefits veterans of the Vietnam era, Gulf War era, and post-9/11 era who were exposed to toxic fumes, burn pits, Agent Orange, radiation, and other environmental hazards. Survivors of toxic exposed veterans and veterans who served in specific countries in Africa, the Middle East, and Southwest Asia are also potentially eligible. Learn more about the PACT Act by going to va.gov/PACT or by calling 1-800-MyVA411. We at VA are here for you, and we're ready to get you the care and benefits you've earned and deserve. I'm Mike Richmond.
And we're back with Steve Ratcliffe, who's an Army veteran and Vietnam veteran. Glad to have you back with us, Steve. Tell us, if you could, please, what motivated you to go into the military?
Well, I'm what you call an Air Force brat. My dad made a career out of the Air Force, and we traveled not a whole lot. I always liked planes when I was a kid and everything. And he went to Thailand, and we moved out here to Wright Pat from Pennsylvania when they closed the base down up there. So I was about 15, 16, so I more or less started my high school in Fairborn.
Mm-hmm.
So after I got out, one of the classes during that time frame, that was 66, I believe, we had a Special Forces Green Beret come in and talk to our class, and he was very impressive. And we've always been patriotic and stuff. I wanted to fly. I've always been into that. And what happened, the Army was the only one that took people from high school. The rest of the service, you had to have at least 2 years of college.
Yeah, and what year was this?
That was I graduated in high school in 1968. Spent the summer doing my thing, and then went in the fall. I went in and signed up. They had what they call a fast test to be qualified to be going to pilot school. Mm-hmm. I missed it by 20 points, and I knew exactly what I did when I left the room.
And what kind of pilot did you want to be?
It was a helicopter
chopper pilot. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
mainly what they were needing over there.
Oh, okay. Right. Now, my father wanted to do the same thing. He didn't get to do that. He was a family man by that time. But yeah.
So it was I missed a test, and they wouldn't let me take it again for 6 more months. And I said, I'm not hanging around. So I volunteered to be a door gunner, so air crew. So they sent me to down to Fort Rucker after I got out of my basic training. It's the aviation training school. They gave me 2 MOSs. It was aviation mechanic apprentice, and then 2 weeks of door gunner school. They let you go up one time and shoot the gun a little bit. So basically,
with live rounds or with?
Yeah, they were live rounds. Yeah.
Okay.
They had a big old white target out there. So.
Okay.
But then they gave me my 30-day leave, and I shipped over to Vietnam through Fort Lewis. Ended up at Cam Bay, where the reception place was in Vietnam. They sent me up to the Americal Division, which was the 23rd Infantry Division, but they called it the Americal. It was the name. It was back. They reactivated it from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So they put you through a week of orientation training and stuff like that in country, and then they assigned me to. I was stationed at Chu Lai Air Force Base up in I Corps, and it was the home of the Americal Division. We had a helipad. It was the 123rd Aviation Battalion, and they had a company of what they call slicks to transport helicopters or supplies and stuff. They had a couple of Aero Scout units. Those units had the small light observation helicopters, which we call OH-6s. They had Cobra gunships, and then they had 2 C-model Huey gunships, which I eventually got assigned to. And then they had another slick of Army personnel, grunts, they carried around. And their main mission was to go out and look for military-age males or females of the enemy, Vietcong or NVA. And they're right at the treetop level, and with the gunships were right behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And in the slick road, we found somebody. They put the infantry down to go pick them up, and took them back for interrogation and stuff.
Sure. What was the mission of the Hueys?
Okay. Well, mainly you had usually the D&H models were the slicks, what they called over there. They hauled the troops into combat assaults. And the Huey gunships, they had 7-shot, they had them configured different. Mine had 7-shot rocket pods and 2 miniguns on each side. And the gunner and the crew chief each had an M60 machine gun. So they were what happened, we out did missions, but they were always on standby, not necessarily doing Aero Scout missions, but if people got in trouble out in the field, they called us and we scrambled out.
So it's mostly troop transport, correct?
Yeah, mostly.
But I believe there were a lot of rescue missions.
Yeah, the medevac helicopters were used by the Hueys.
Well, but you guys would go in, if you had somebody stranded, would you go in and rescue them from a tight situation?
Well, problem with our Hueys, we normally didn't do that because we carried so much weight.
Uh-huh.
And with the humidity and stuff like it is over there, we could barely get off the ground with the weight we had on. They had to watch the fuel and not take on so much fuel. But there was one time we were out on a mission. We got scrambled out to alert team, which was Long Range Reconnaissance, about 5 or 6 guys. They were on the run from the bad guys, and they had some wounded, and it was right around dusk. and they called and we went out and shot up the area to try to protect them. But they needed the dust off in. So what happened, the dust off hadn't arrived yet. We had the one unit, we were told we were going in to pick them up. We had both ships. We had the one ship go in, and we had to throw a lot of ammunition overboard to lighten the load so we can get back off the LZ, because it was right on top of a mountain in a tree area. So they unloaded, they went in, I forget how many people they had, but they picked up about 3 people, and we were going to go in next to get the rest of them out, and we were dumping ammo. We just kept enough just to protect the aircraft for that short period of time. Well, like I say, it was dust. We were getting ready to go in to pick those guys up, and the dust off showed up. So he went in and picked them up, and we covered him while he was in there.
Right.
And went home, and then we went back. So I think those guys on the crew that flew in and got them, I think a lot of them got some distinguished flying crosses out of that.
What was your most memorable experience in Vietnam?
Well, there was actually 2 of them that was pretty memorable. The one, and part of this was the pilot's fault, because they were told not to when they go in for their gun run, not to break over the target. I think this guy forgot that. Because he broke over the target, and they shot rounds right in between all 3 of us.
Wow.
And knocked some radios out and everything. So I'm glad he wasn't a little far to the left or right.
Yeah.
So that was a memorable one. This other one was it was the most action we had seen. So I was over there from April 3rd to supposed to be April 20th or April 23rd. No, 20th. And I had put an extension in to stay another 6 months. So I've been pretty lucky so far. I had no problems, But this was a heavy, intense fight around the village and everything else. They called us out to give air support. And we were doing it. I tell you, we were right on the deck. We were always fly on the deck on the top of the trees. And we went in that one time, and I caught one that came through the helicopter through my right foot. And that ruined my whole day.
Yeah, I'll bet it did.
So, I think one of the other guys got wounded too, but they took us back. Actually, after talking to some of the guys, that was me getting shot was probably a blessing. I didn't think so at the time, but we took back, and they went back to the airstrip, and they put me on another chopper to take me to the hospital. And from what I heard from the guys, they were looking over the aircraft to see where it hits. And there was a black spot on the mast. That's the part between the blade and the helicopter. And they shut her down. There was a hole about that big in that mast. So if I didn't get hit, we wouldn't have stopped to check the bird out. And probably still been fired, and that whole blade might have went off.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I would say that would be a pretty memorable event out of the tour.
It was interesting. It happened right on April 3rd.
Yeah.
So when I went, they took me to the hospital and cleaned up my wound and everything. And they asked me if I wanted to keep my extension or take my normal DROS, which was on April 20th, about 20 days later. I said, well, I think somebody's telling me something. I'm going home.
Yeah. Literally dodged that bullet, and that was probably a really good warning.
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah, somebody was looking out for me.
Steve, if I can ask you, have you or do you stay in contact first with some of your crewmates?
Yeah, it was a while when we finally got hooked up and everything after everything going on. There was one thing I forgot to tell you too. My first unit was the Aero Scout unit, and we had a couple of reunions. They're not as active as the other, but they'd flown the hours out on those Huey gunships that I was flying and finished transition to Cobras. Put me on guard duty, and I said, I don't like this. So I put in for a transfer to a unit south, about 30 miles south of us, which is the 174th Assault Helicopter Company. They had all Huey gunships and all slicks, and they're the ones that, on their way over, they had contacted the American Volunteer Group, the P-40s, Flying Tigers of World War II fame, and asked permission to use the shark's mouth on the front of their Hueys. I don't think it was a requirement, but it was common courtesy, I think. So we were the only Huey outfit that had a shark's mouth painted on the front of it. And that unit meets every year. down in Florida. I've been to several of their reunions. That's where I've been finding most of my information and what's been going on. They have a web page, so I got a spot on there and I get up, buy my helicopter and everything else. So just put in 174th.org. And I got a list of people that submitted stuff. I think they got me in there in 1970, or I think. And well, the other one was we crashed. Another time we crashed on Christmas Day.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Basically, we had some fuel starvation problems and ran out of gas, basically.
Well, those are some really interesting stories. We're going to take another quick break here right now. When we come back, we'll hear more from Steve about his experience with the Dayton VA Medical Center.
When I retired from the Air Force, I received my medical benefits for life through TRICARE. I didn't know I was also eligible for care through the VA, some of which I pay no copay for or an annual premium. Now I have options I didn't know I had before because of the Dayton VA.
Don't wait another day to see how the VA may help you.
I'm a vet, and it's my VA. Make it your VA today.
Call 937-268-6511, extension 2159 to enroll, or visit dayton.va.gov.
And we're back with Army veteran Steve Ratcliffe. Steve, tell us, how did you first discover the VA?
Well, I had another year to go in the Army when I came back. So I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, down then, and they were training the ARVN pilots, Vietnamese pilots. I didn't do much flying with them. We mainly stayed back and refueled and took care of them. But after I got out, I went ahead and applied for disability with my right foot condition. And it was got some traumatic arthritis with a bullet went clean through.
Sure.
And then I think it went to Atlanta through there. I filed a claim through Atlanta. I ended up getting about 20% off that wound. And then I didn't go to the VA much because I was still living in Georgia. I stayed there for a couple of years and went to technical school and got my experience in boilers and stuff. And they called me up here. I put in a vacation card because my parents were still here. Put up a job card when I was up here. And it was a 2-year course. And I was about 3 months from finishing the tour to get my certificate. And a guy from the main heating plant up there called me.
That right, Pat.
Yeah. And it was the job he offered me was the wage of grade 9, and I doubled what I was making there. I says, well, I don't need to finish that school. Got me a job. That's the whole point of going to school. Getting a good job.
Absolutely.
So I come up here December 3rd of 73 and started over there at the main coal-fired heating plant. And then I started going to the VA to
here in Dayton.
Check my foot, Dayton VA.
Yeah.
Yep. And getting it checked out. And I still had my federal health plan. So I mainly used that insurance because I didn't know a whole lot of it. I think I was a priority 3 or 2. I don't know if they had the priorities at that point, to tell you the truth. So
yeah.
But they've increased, and I get help with that. And right now, the VA I'm doing good because they're fitting me with shoes. Before, they used to just put one orthotic in my shoe and not the other one. For a long time, I was walking around like that. My back was hurting because I wasn't level with the chiropractor. He said, you need one for each shoe. So we went to the VA and got it, see a podiatrist, and she fixed me up with the shoes.
Great.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell me, you were talking earlier about, the uniqueness of being a Vietnam veteran and the atmosphere that you came back to and what other veterans experience. I assume that it's a different world now at the VA than it was when you first started going to the VA.
Oh yes, completely different.
Tell us about what you see now compared to back then.
Oh, I think it's 100% turnaround. Well, I usually go to the Springfield Seabach. I actually live in Eden, and it's closer to me for that. I got a private doctor on the outside too, but she's the one that found my diabetes and stuff, so I had that for a long time. Yeah.
So, Steve, you were talking earlier about the apprehension of using technology, and things are changing so rapidly now. I want to say first that veterans who do have apprehension about using technology or difficulties for whatever reason shouldn't feel that the VA is only using technology. There are still people to talk to. You can still walk up to the counter. Though now, we're doing online reservations for appointments. We're doing online check-in. We're getting your prescriptions done online. Everything can be done virtually, which is actually faster. But at the same time, if you don't have that capability, if you're not familiar, don't have a cell phone or smartphone, or you don't like using a computer, you can still walk up to the counter, talk to somebody, call somebody at the VA.
I find that also.
But the technologies now are amazing. Do you use those technologies at all?
Yes, I do. I do use them all. I check on my medication, and because I think I'm on every one of the doctors I see. I think I'm hooked into someone with them. I'm into the Kettering, I'm into the Premier, and I'm into the VA. So,
right.
And they're all sharing records now.
Yes, so they are.
That was the key. One of the key things, getting the records, your medical records and your disability records. But it's a lot easier now to do that because they upgraded their system out there. And I just recently got into the secure system, I guess you call it.
Right.
Yeah, when I went out to put in to make sure my paperwork is in from this last disability thing, I checked on that also. Yeah, I think it's working. You gotta use it to retain it. That's one of my problems.
Oh yeah, it's like riding a bicycle. You got to stay on that bicycle, and
if you don't use it all the time, I forget all these things.
Right.
How to get from here to there.
Yeah. Well, as the saying goes, there's an app for everything, and the VA's got an app for everything now. Yeah. But a new thing they've got out there is called Ask VA. If you go to ask.va.gov, that's another great resource that's fairly new online, and you can have a wealth of information at your fingertips and a wealth of services there also. But I'm glad to hear that you're using those technologies, and we encourage everyone else to do the same, because it really is a great resource the VA has.
It can get you frustrated, but there's people out there you can ask.
So you're out there all the time talking to veterans, some of which who are unenrolled for health care. I know you probably asked that question. Do you go to the VA for your health care? What do you tell those veterans, or what would you tell a veteran who hasn't enrolled? And what should they do?
I think they ought to get enrolled. I'm kind of keeping things, because I keep my federal health plan, because my wife, when I go, she can use that. So I keep both plans, and it came in handy this one time when they ran out of the Ozempic, and they sent me the Trulicity. I couldn't deal with the Trulicity. I had to have the Ozempic, so I ordered it through my other place, and it would cost me $50. But I didn't want to do that. I want to go through the VA.
But you know what? You bring up a great option. There's one of the things that we hear from veterans when we're out in the field talking to folks about enrolling is they're like, "Oh, I don't want to give up my health care, or I don't want to give up my doc." And a lot of them don't realize that, number one, you don't have to give up that doc. And I tell everybody, the VA is just increasing your options. You should always exercise all the options available to you. And if you don't enroll, you have fewer options. So as you're talking about,
that's basically what I've done. I try to cover all the bases. So
right, absolutely. We don't ever encourage anybody to not explore other options, but rather to have the VA as another option, because you said before, the medications are a whole lot cheaper. You're now at a higher percentage rating, which increases over years for a lot of folks. And then all of a sudden, you don't have to pay any out-of-pocket expenses. There's no annual premiums with VA healthcare. Like even TRICARE has annual premiums, albeit not like other services. But at the same time, it's one of those things that we hope everybody understands, that that's just one more layer that you can add to the cake, that can help you ensure that your healthcare is premium and taken care of.
And what I do is try to, because I have been seeing the doc out at Springfield, and I try to keep track of my records and everything so I can share them with everybody, so everybody knows what's going on with me.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. It's been great to hear your stories. We love to hear stories like yours from veterans in the Southwest Ohio region.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. VA Video Connect, VA's secure app for video visits, allows veterans to meet with VA healthcare providers on a smartphone, computer, or tablet. Veterans can invite up to 5 guests, such as a caregiver or family member, to attend their visit. Learn more by going to telehealth.va.gov. That's telehealth.va.gov.
I was in the military. I didn't know that when I left, I was eligible for health care through the VA. I thought you had to be disabled or been wounded. Another vet told me I should check it out. Now, I have the care I need at the Dayton VA.
Don't wait another day to see how the VA may help you.
I'm a vet, and it's my VA. Make it your VA today.
Call 937-268-6511, extension 2159 to enroll, or visit dayton.va.gov.
We want to say thanks again to our special guests for taking time today to share their story. We truly enjoy hearing stories from veterans from across the region and learning more about how they found care through the Dayton VA Medical Center. And as always, we want to thank our listeners for joining us and remind them, if they are a veteran and are not enrolled, to enroll with the Veterans Health Administration to receive health care benefits through the Dayton VA Medical Center. It's easy and it doesn't cost a thing. You just need to be a veteran. The simplest way to start enrollment is to call our enrollment and eligibility office at 937-268-6511, extension 4105. They can schedule an appointment for you to come to the Dayton campus or help make an appointment at one of the surrounding community-based outpatient clinics located at Springfield, Richmond, Lima, and Middletown. Again, that number is 937-268-6511, extension 4105. Veterans may also enroll by visiting www.choose.va.gov/health. While there, you can choose from applying online or by phone or by mail. It's just that simple, really. As I said before, it doesn't cost a thing to apply. So what are you waiting for? Call us today. Or, if you know of a veteran who is not enrolled, have them call to start taking advantage of this benefit. If you're a veteran, it's your VA. Sign up today. Join us again for another episode of MyVA Dayton with the Dayton VA Medical Center. Our episodes drop the 1st and 15th of each month. I'm Scott Leese with your co-host Greg Tucker. Thanks again for listening to MyVA Dayton.